How I broke the habit of being myself. We all know that Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about breaking the habit of being yourself. He's written a very famous book on the same title. But how come many of us keep living out the same behaviors, the same thinking, the same feelings? Therefore, as we know, our personality creates our personal reality. So, me, Vineet,
Nidhi?
we're brother and sister, we're teachers of creation. We both have broken the habit of being ourselves. Particularly in the last 6 to 8 months, we've had a massive transformation. So I'm going to share with you my story and how I broke the habit of being myself. What you don't know about me is that I spent most of my life in a state of fear. I have run my own businesses for the last 12 years. What would happen is I would have boom and bust within my business. I would experience what I would say chronic levels of fear of failure. And the sort of dialogue that I would have in my head would be things like, this is never going to work. I'm going to get it wrong. I'm just going to be a failure for the rest of my life. It's never going to work. It was a real critical, shall we say, it was a real critical dialogue. And so therefore, because I had so many fearful programs playing out, I would keep effectively sabotaging and even procrastinating when it came to my businesses, hence boom and bust. So one day I became sick of being myself, essentially, right? I just decided that I have to break the habit of being myself. So how did I do that? I'm going to take you back to a particular epiphany that I had one night. And the epiphany was this. There was a moment when I had these fears cascading through my being, these emotions that had taken over me. The fear of being a failure for the rest of my life, effectively, nothing going to work out. And suddenly I had this epiphany. I had spent most of my life feeling powerless because I believed on some unconscious level, whatever I was experiencing emotionally, mentally, was out of my control. It was happening in the world. The world was a scary place. And because the world was a scary place, I had no control over it. So therefore, when I believe that this is a subjective experience and the world is doing this to me, do you think I'm going to be able to break the habit of being myself? I'm not. And that was my realization. I was like, this is what I believe that is happening to me, right? It's happening in the world. The turning point happened when I realized actually it's not happening outside of me. It's not happening in the world. I suddenly had an objective realization where I unglued from the world and I realized I was running the programs within myself. It's like having a software program in your hardware, in your laptop. The software program you put in, and I realized I had done this to myself. I had created programs where I was scared, I was thinking scary thoughts, I was having fearful emotions, and therefore I was perceiving and behaving in ways that were frankly scared. And I was frankly removing myself from the world. So when I had that experience, I suddenly became empowered. I realized, oh, this emotion, oh, this is what I'm running as dialogue. This is the script I'm running. And when that ungluing process happened, I was able to literally start unplugging those software programs within my own being, within my mind, within my consciousness. As I did that, I literally unglued, I unwired in my brain. I literally felt this. Those programs in my head, those thoughts that were saying, this is never going to work. I'm always going to get it wrong. I'm going to be a failure. And the emotions, when I did that, they were able to fall away. Those thoughts and those emotions started falling away. When they fell away, that was when I was able to choose a more empowered programs. And with empowered programs, I was able to install ideas that actually I am able to handle failure. I am able to overcome myself, etc. That is when my business success went through the roof as well, because I was no longer scared and moving away. So my key point here is I went from believing it's objectively happening to me in the world, no, subjectively happening in the world, and I became objective about it. That is how I managed to break the habit of being myself.
So, how I broke the habit of being myself. So, firstly, I love the title because what is myself? 3 or 4 years ago, I was told that I had a health condition that ultimately dropped me to my knees, and I went through such a level of extreme suffering that I thought, you know what, I am fucked. Like, I am done. There is no way out for me. And so I felt I was absolutely trapped. So obviously, I was aware of Dr. Joe's work. I was doing his work not very well, but I was trying. And then when I really got serious about it, I started thinking about who is myself? Who am I being? And I recognized that actually, we go around saying, but this is me. I don't feel like myself. Actually, when we're saying things like that, what do we say? We are a set of programs that come from the things that we've been thinking, the feelings that we've been feeling, and the behaviors that we have been behaving. And then we think that that is myself. So I recognize that actually, you know what? I've spent my life feeling like I'm entrapped. My thinking has been as though I am entrapped, and therefore my behaviors have been those of someone that thinks that she is trapped. So then what has reality shown me? You are trapped. And 4 years ago, it showed me ultimate entrapment where I couldn't leave my house anymore. There were points where I would spend months in the house because I was terrified to go outside because of the health condition. There came a point where I said, right, I am now very familiar with who myself is. I don't want to be that myself anymore. I want to break this habit. I also, just like Vinny has said, I became acutely aware. Suddenly when the penny just drops, it dropped. I became acutely aware. I'm feeling and thinking as though I'm trapped and I'm behaving as though I'm trapped, but I'm thinking as though it's happening to me. The world has decided that I need to be trapped and it's happening to me. No, it's not. I'm doing it to me. And I know that might sound, for those of you that are already doing the work, it might sound really obvious, but I think that a lot of us are still falling for this, that we think that the environment is happening to us. And the moment that that penny dropped for me, I was able to, as Vinny just said, I was able to start ungluing from the thoughts that I was thinking, from the feelings that I was feeling, and eventually, as we know, what is the last thing to manifest? The way that we behave. And my behavior started to change. And that is when I started to overcome the habit of being myself.
And do you know what I would just add for a second? I know she's my sister. She suffered most of her life. I would be fair to say that you suffered from some level of depression,
Yeah.
right? I literally saw her overcome depression overnight. But the overnight happened because she unglued from being identified as being depressed. Many of us are identified. We believe we can't change because if it's me, right? And that keeps us stuck. But the moment you go, I'm not depressed, I have depressive episodes, right? These are programs playing out. I literally saw when she unglued, it fell away overnight. So it's about awareness. Awareness is the first step to being able to break the habit of being yourself. The first step is awareness.
Yes.
And I would say, whatever habit you're trying to break, be aware of your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Then, when you have awareness, then start to unglue, right? Because awareness will allow you to unglue. When you unglue and you have some objective space between you and the program, that is when you can make change. That is when you can decide to no longer run the thoughts, no longer run the feelings, and no longer have the same behavior. Now you can substitute for who do you want to be. You're not obligated to be you. You're not obligated to be you, right? You're not. You can be someone else. The manifestation of your being is just out of your imagination.
But I tell you, just to add to that point, the reason why often we can feel obligated to be ourselves, the ourselves that we are familiar with, is because it's almost like when we decide, when we make that decision to do something else, to be someone else, to make a different decision, it's almost like we are walking away from a lifelong relationship and we feel bad. It feels wrong. It feels weird.
And I remember back in the day, there was a teacher that I knew, and he used to say it's called abandonment depression because you are invested in who you are and your identity. And therefore, when you walk away, it's like, it's almost like experiencing heartbreak, right?
It is, yeah.
You leave a part of yourself behind. And so often, many of us would rather be familiar with something which is a state of suffering, right? Rather than create a new self because it's familiar. But you have to be willing to go from familiar to the unknown to then creating a new sense of self. And there is a period of time when you don't know who you are and you've got to get comfortable in that.
Absolutely.
And if you're not comfortable in the unknown, in no man's land, as we often say to our clients, then you're never going to make a change because there's a time when you don't know. So I hope this has served you. Hope this has inspired you. Our stories inspired you to break the habit of being yourself. My name is Vineet.
I am Nidhi.
And we are teachers of creation. We support people to become the creators of their reality. So if this has served you, in the description box, there is a newsletter called the Missing Pieces newsletter, where we support you to become the creator of your reality. go ahead and sign up, right? Sign up right now.
Absolute culture.
Free of charge, Cork, as she said. And the second point is this: if this has served you, please do like this video. Please make a comment. Tell us what you liked about this. Subscribe to the channel. Help us to help you ultimately, and share it with others in the community. We're on the path to supporting you to become the creator of your reality. We look forward to seeing you in the next video. Lots of love from me.
From me.
Over and out.